Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Obscure. My name is Tia, and I'm a film director, music video maker, and editor from Georgia. Let's get started. Want it or not, I had to ask myself a question about freedom and equality at some point as well. It's quite a relevant topic nowadays. But let's think about what freedom and equality really means. And I do believe that those terms need to be specified because a person who doesn't obey the law and does whatever he wants and is not punished for it is also free. In that sense, government who has all the power is also free to do whatever they want in the country. If we take freedom in this connotation, then power is freedom. On the other hand, there is also the idea of equality. Let's say me and you are equal in our rights. However, I don't have one hand and one leg, while you have all parts of your body. I'm weaker than you. But you're free to use all of your power against me and defeat me. Meanwhile, I have a choice and freedom to say that I'm still equal to you and choose something else where I don't need my hand and my leg. Well, what kind of equality is that? And sorry, I know the example sounds silly and stupid and makes no sense, but I'm sure you got the idea I was trying to convey. It's very important to outline that equality of rights is what we're talking about, and not the general equality of people, because some people are still weaker than the others. And a lot of people need protection. And if people who have more power are more free than those who are weak, well, one person's freedom restricts the other person's freedom. Both terms are very vague. If we're all free and there is an anarchy, of course, I also have the right to go against you, use dirty tricks, kill you, and deprive you of your freedom, because I'm free to do it. And a lot of people ask themselves this question when they see the violence in the streets. That's why it's always very difficult for a random citizen to put an equality sign between violence and freedom. If the citizen himself is not powerful in this situation, he assumes that those who are using power are free, meanwhile he, in his weakness, is not. That's why I believe that putting accent on power and violence is often discouraging for a lot of people who don't have it. They actively use this formula to show people that in order to be free, you need to be violent. And if you can't be violent and you don't have power to be violent, it means that you're not free and you can't be free. Therefore, you just have to admit that some people in the society are more dominant than the others, so you have to shut up. Yes, in my previous episode, I did say that our government is trying to make people lose their belief in legislation. Or on the other hand, they're also trying to make people believe in their own legislation, which is fraud. The education comes in exactly at this point, because if you're not educated enough and you don't know the law and how it operates, it doesn't matter if it's a good law or a bad law. If you just believe that the idea of law in itself can protect you, you're wrong. Indeed, a lot of people today are asking us to, in this case, address the power of numbers. Like in jungle. If law doesn't work anymore, it means that we are back to jungle where the strongest one wins, right? And what did ancient people do to protect themselves from the beasts? Yes, they created groups. That idea in itself is absolutely correct. However, when those groups have the dirt, let's say, on their shoulders, saying that they're being violent, and there is no proof from each side, of course, a lot of people hesitate to join them, because again, there is illusions that they're joining something that is depriving them of the power and protection of the law, which people, in fact, I think, still cling to. After all, that's exactly what Ukraine has been trying to do all this time, to fight the war in a way where they can still prove that they are not the aggressors, which for outsider is very difficult to distinguish. Indeed, that kind of fight caused a lot of sacrifices, and people are afraid of that. People are afraid that they're the one who are going to be sacrificed. And our government also very effectively uses this idea against them. Peace against destruction. But is being afraid of destruction a sin? Is being weak and afraid a flaw, a vice? Or is it a weakness? Or if it actually is a weakness and a vice, why are some people trying to imply even more fear on top of that, trying to say that if you don't act now, later, you're still gonna be sacrificed? In a way, it might be true, but if a person is already scared, telling them that it's gonna get worse doesn't make them more courageous, does it? In the end, we're all stuck in a damned circle where nobody is free. Freedom of choice also means that you can choose your own safety against futile sacrifice. And a lot of people in Georgia use that freedom. The only conclusion that I can draw from this is that we are stuck in a circle of a blame game. Government is blaming the protesters are blaming people are blaming everybody else, and nothing really changes. For the sake of a joke and an irony, I even compare the situation to a BDSM in one of my music videos. It's like people are choking and hitting each other without a stop word, or asking how much sacrifice is enough. But jokes aside, what can we really do in this kind of situation to improve the condition? The informational war they're raging against us is also making it difficult to understand who is our ally and who is our enemy in all this mumble jumble. But then, for one, can we just believe in ourselves and in our own little actions? If we don't understand what's going on, let's go and find out. If nobody's helping us, let's for once believe in ourselves and trying to change something in our environment, in our own life. If nobody trusts us, let's try to convince 2 or 3 people around you to trust you. Because I believe that what we really need as a society nowadays is trust. That's what everybody is trying to destroy for us. The trust towards your neighbor, towards your friend, your mother, your father, even people who we are supposed to be closest to and love and cherish are becoming our enemies in this new reality. We're easily getting into fights and abandoning each other because we no longer trust each other. After all, it's still legal to express your opinion in private, right? Think together, discuss, argue, and find solutions. Gossip has destroyed many lives and careers, in my experience. I've heard people talk badly about other people. Then I've gone to the person, I talked to them, and I realized that something is wrong here, and I would always try to stand up and argue their righteousness. It happened to me a lot in the past, and I even found myself in the center of those arguments where nobody trusts me. I got isolated and was afraid even to talk to anybody. Just imagine, it's really difficult when you're alone against a huge part of the society that was supposed to be your ally and your supporter, and suddenly turned their back onto you. It's quite a paradox where you don't know what actually to do, to fight in the public, fight in the private, to go underground and sneak around like rats, eating each other, or keep eating each other on the public, or keeping eating the governments. But in the end, aggression piles up, emotions get aggravated, and we just keep fighting each other. People are stuck trying to regain their trust and reputation, and then meanwhile, while we waste our energy on that, the government is still doing their tricks behind our backs. Then we go back to fighting the government and forget about our reputation, and again, it's a damn circle. So what do we do to remain the trust and find a common goal in between each other? I believe that the only thing that we shouldn't give up on is on convincing each other. I don't mean we should convince each other to give up on our own opinions and values. No, to convince each other to listen and trust each other again, and to cooperate in building the future that we all need, not the future that only few people want and believe that we need. One of the biggest issues for people in trusting each other nowadays is money. We all need money to survive, to eat, to feed our children, to make our day. But not everybody is the same. There are families, for example, of a working class, that if they stop working, they don't have any other source of income. Meanwhile, there is a higher middle class which can live on expense of their parents or families and have a lot of time to intellectualize and fight for the rights. But the conflict between those two has been always the stepping stone of every revolution. One is accusing another of laziness and having too much time to shout and scream on the street. Another one is blaming the other for not supporting the righteous cause, which they believe in. However, when we look back into time, after every war, what is happening is a financial crisis. Often this financial crisis pushes the civilization to bring new waves of inventions or innovations and creative thinking. However, certain generations in the midst of this crisis lose their lives. Most of the time, the sacrificed class is the working class. That's why it's always difficult for them to abandon their work and actually make any specific actions to support the revolution. The successful revolution is most of the time signified by the inclusion of the working class. However, wartime is making it more difficult. People in a higher financial chain are trying to get as much capital as possible right now, so when the crisis actually hits, they're still afloat. Besides that, they still have to keep competing and fighting between each other and playing the chess game of the war. And all of it takes a lot of money. So who is sacrificed in this big game? It's the poor and lower middle class, or so-called working class. As other people are fighting for their rights, yes, we have to admit that sometimes it actually is like that. There is a certain group of people who are fighting for their right and their lives. They're the ones who always need to be convinced and proven that the risk is worth it. As someone who hasn't been there and who hasn't been part of it, it's easy to blame everything on a working class, which is so egotistic and self-centered that they don't want to fight for their own future. However, unless you try to live like them and have the daily challenges of the working class, you don't understand how difficult it is to sacrifice even 1 hour of your life and focus on something else. Your whole routine crumbles, because when you work just to be able to survive, you count every penny. Not only you have to work, but you also have to do economic in your home. You have to count how many pennies a day you can waste to have a piece of meat, or how often can you buy fresh bread? Do you have enough nutrition? Are you eating cereals? Can you afford vegetables? Yes, there's a lot of stuff on the mind of working class people, especially those who are doing simple office jobs and are underpaid by their managers. That part of society is signified by a very pragmatic realism and nihilism more than any other class. For them, the romantic idea of freedom and nation is an empty noise. They only have so much time to spare onto your persona that is trying to convince them that you are an honest citizen who is trying to fight for a righteous cause and their comfort, and not for your own career and money. In that sense, sometimes you really need to be a Jesus and say no to money in order to be able to be convincing for those kind of people. They never listen to those who have more money than them because they already have more freedom. That's the curse of capitalism. I can keep talking about the subject in circles, but in a way, stating the obvious sometimes is also an important part of communication. Thank you for your attention, and don't forget to follow, subscribe, and support.